In 2019, the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol went into effect. Its goal is to reduce hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, and reduce the impacts of climate change. Cindy Newberg is the director of the Stratospheric Protection Division within the EPA and helped lead negotiations for that amendment. Cindy, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So first explain what HFCs are and why are they so bad for the environment?
Sure. Hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, actually are quite important to society. They provide cooling and air conditioning systems. They propel aerosols. They're used in foam products. But they're also global warming gases. They have high global warming potential. So compared to something like carbon dioxide, which we always think of, HFCs have global warming potentials that are hundreds to thousands of times more potent. And so while they're helpful in running our air conditioning systems, we also want to make sure that they're not emitted to the atmosphere and that they're properly taken care of.
So are there other substances that can be used instead of HFCs that can do those same beneficial things?
There are, and there are emerging new technologies that also reduce the amount of HFCs that someone may need to use in a particular application. This is all sort of progress from when we used to use ozone depleting substances that were also obviously bad for the environment, bad for human health. HFCs were a substitute for those, and as technology continues to progress, we're seeing more substitutes come on the market that will replace HFCs.
So what does the Kigali Amendment do?
The Kigali Amendment is a global agreement under the Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol is a treaty that was ratified by all countries. It's unique in that sense that everyone is a party to it. And the Kigali Amendment will address HFCs in the same way we address the ozone depleting substances, by phasing down their global production and their global use over a period of time.
And what have we seen in the U.S. as far as reduction of HFCs?
We're beginning to see HFCs be reduced in terms of how they're being used and managed. Under the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act, our domestic legislation to implement the Kigali Amendment, or to implement our domestic phase down of HFCs, we are beginning to set our baseline, which we set last year, and to take our first step. We've already reduced 10% of production and import of HFCs in the United States. And moving forward, we'll take additional steps. In 2024, we'll take another step to reduce further. And our goal is to reduce by 85%. So over 15 years, we're going to reduce by 85% our production and import of these chemicals.
So the U.S. is the only country that's involved that has not ratified this amendment. Is that true?
There's actually other countries that have not ratified.
But why hasn't the U.S. done that? And what's going on in Congress?
Well, actually, the U.S. has taken a lot of steps towards ratification. Recently, there was a vote in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that voted the treaty out of committee. So the next step would be for the full Senate to take a vote on the floor to consider the amendment. And then after that, it would be up to the president to go ahead and give us the opportunity to join the amendment. It is a process. It takes time. It's not something that we take lightly as the U.S. government, and it needs to be considered. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We are not the only country that hasn't ratified, though there are a number of countries that have already ratified, and of course we want to be amongst those.
And what difference will that make if we do get ratification?
This is a global agreement, and being part of that global community that's implementing the Montreal Protocol is really important. We play an important leadership role. EPA and State Department in particular work together to ensure that we are represented and where the protocol is being discussed. And this really concerns trade and implementation and technology in the United States. Our companies, the U.S. companies, have been on the forefront of developing alternatives, and we want to see those companies be successful. And so it's important for us to be part of that global community.
I wanted to ask you about companies and equipment manufacturers, because typically they're not going to be too excited about the EPA coming in and saying, hey, there's more regulation for you to adhere to. So how did you work with them? How did you get buy-in? What's their reaction been?
I think we're very lucky in a lot of ways. We've had a very long history of working with both the environmental groups and the industry, and both the equipment manufacturers as well as the chemical manufacturers. And so as we were thinking about how would we structure a phase down of HFCs, how would we address all of the challenges that one sees with making such huge changes in how chemicals are used, we've had a lot of contact and a lot of constant discussion with folks, bringing them in, stakeholder meetings, an open dialogue, and making sure that we are cognizant of where their challenges are. What can be done, also what can't be done. What are the ways we can address those, and how do we work together as the government, with industry, with environmental groups, and really with the public generally, to make sure that what we are achieving, what we're trying to achieve by phasing down HFCs, is done so in a way in which everybody has buy-in. And we've been really very fortunate to have a good group of industry to work with who are positive, who want to see us succeed, all of us succeed.
You've been at the EPA for like 3 decades. So what were some of the initiatives that you worked on early in your career that you feel prepared you for leading these negotiations on the Kigali Amendment?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. When I joined EPA, it was right after Congress had passed the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments. And so we were just starting our work in a lot of areas, and for me in particular, on ozone layer protection. And so I got to be there in the early days when we were first standing up our phase out of ozone depleting substances. People forget, we phased out CFCs. We phased out their replacement chemicals, HCFCs. Most people haven't even noticed those changes happened. So for me, working on initiatives where we were able to change the class of chemicals that people were using to cool their air conditioning in their cars. We're now on the 3rd set of substances cooling cars since the early 1990s. Folks haven't noticed. For us, for me, that's actually something I look at and I say, that's a success story. We made changes, we improved the environment, and my mom's happy. Her car still gives her the cooling she wants.
All right. Well, Cindy, appreciate your work on that, and thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.